I'm going to get in trouble because our next speaker is my time management coach, and I am late. I am 10 minutes late, Sarah. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Beatrice. I apologize. We've got a little turned around around a little after lunch, but every single minute that we have gone over has been worth it. So my apologies, because I know that time is very important to you. But the most important thing, and the reason why I always like to have Sarah Ohanesian, the CEO of So Productive, come on and be the last speaker, is because, and by the way, she's also the co-host of the Time Management Tips in 20 podcast with me. Although I'm not really a co-host, I just kind of listen and complain about my time problems. But Sarah is here because nothing that we've spoken about today can manifest in any way, shape, or form unless we find and make and claw and scream and take the time to make it happen. I just also want to mention, as we did in the beginning of the program, that Kim Warner, who was our first speaker, and Sarah are hosting a leadership workshop for women November 14th of this year. It's a live workshop. It's from 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern time. And then afterwards, the Kim and Sarah will stay there for at least another half an hour and answer everybody's questions. And then they're going to turn that into what they're called monthly tribe meetings, which I love, which will start on December 12th. I am going to put the in that information into the chat right now. But without further ado, Sarah, if you could just take it over and just make sure you let everybody know a little bit more about you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So Deborah asked me to close out the day with some time management tips, but tips that will help you stand your ground, reinforcing that theme of the day, so that from, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, you're still standing your ground. You're still accomplishing those goals that matter to you so much. So I don't know about you, but I was raised in the Midwest. And now I've lived in the Northeast for even longer. So I've had this interesting experience of the fast pace, in your face, like yes to everything intensity of the Northeast, mixed with my hardworking Swedish and German heritage, parents who expected perfection, and the guilty mentality of a Midwestern Lutheran. I have to explain to my East Coast friends that Midwestern Lutheran guilt, it's a lot like Catholic guilt, except it's more passive aggressive, and it's served with a casserole. But I was raised to put others first, to be a nice person, to obey, to follow the rules. Stand your ground was not a phase that I heard in my house growing up. That's not something we talked about. So needless to say, I've gone through periods where my worth was tied to my work. It's been really tough for me to say no. My guilty conscience will say, just do it for them. Just take care of it. So it's no wonder that I, and you might too, fill your week with meetings and the things that other people need from you without question. And then if there's any time left in the week, then you'll work on your priorities. But there probably won't be. So you'll be forced to work on those most critical tasks, those things you're excited about that you learned today that you want to implement. You're going to have to do those things at night and on the weekend when your brain is not at its best. Because let's be real, especially in the print industry, that deadline, it's not moving. This happens when you don't stand your ground, when you don't value your own time. And this happens often at work. I'm sure you can relate to this, where other people decide when and how busy you are. And many of us tend to value everybody else's time over our own. My Midwestern Lutheran guilt starts creeping in, and insert your upbringing, your culture, your heritage. You were also likely raised to be a good person and to put other people first. But today I want you to just consider what would happen if you truly, and I mean like truly, like really started to believe and started to value your own time. Like, what could you actually accomplish if you stood your ground and you'd valued your time and what you're trying to accomplish? So today, I'm going to give you permission to stand your ground, to put time on your calendar, to put on that most important stuff first that you really want to accomplish. And I've got 3 core tips, and these are permissions as well, for you to do that. So I want to give you permission to have boundaries. That's the first one. Permission to say no, and permission to delegate. They're permissions, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that as well. So let's start with number 1, which is to have those boundaries. Clear boundaries are the best way for us to stand our ground and to stay there. And start to think of boundaries as parameters that you set for yourself, and you can communicate those boundaries to others. I often describe boundaries as playing in a sandbox, because boundaries give us a safe place to play, safe place in the sandbox. And boundaries are a way for us to have some parameters and some guidelines. But boundaries are hard, right? Especially as women, we might be natural people pleasers, and when we're afraid to let other people down. But boundaries matter so much because they're the way that we help define what we will and we will not do. They help manage the expectations that other people might have for us. And boundaries help us make better and faster decisions. They actually help us stand our ground. So I'm going to give you a few seconds here. Just grab a piece of paper and a pen if you don't have one, or open up your notes app on the computer. We're going to do a little bit of quick work together here. So a few seconds, grab a piece of paper, pen, open up a notes app. Okay. So I'd love for you to just write down your answers as we talk through these. I'm going to pause for a few seconds after each one. What boundaries do you wish you had? What physical boundaries are important to you? So think about at work and at home. So write those down. And then what time boundaries do you need? Like, are you taking on too many things? Are you saying yes when you really want to say no? Are you letting other people dictate your time? Letting your time get away from you? Letting everybody else decide how you spend it? Write a few of those things down. Any time boundaries you wish you had. And then people boundaries. Do you need boundaries with friends, with family members, with a coworker, maybe texting, calling after hours? What relationships might need a boundary adjustment? Write those down. And then the last category, any other areas of life where you wish you had a boundary. This could be health, fitness, food, spirituality. Like, what other boundaries might you be missing? And a good question to ask here is, what are you still doing that stopped being fun? What's stressing you out? What other areas in life might you need a boundary? A couple more seconds to finish that up. So the answers to those questions are all indicators that you might need some boundaries in those areas. And defining those boundaries that you're craving, because over time, your boundaries are going to change. As life shifts, you're going to need different boundaries at different points in life. But when you do this exercise, you'll be more equipped to proactively manage your boundaries. And when you know what your boundaries are in the first place, you can stand your ground. So I'd also recommend setting boundaries as a team in the workplace. And it's really critical to just make sure everybody's on the same page. And these can be simple. Boundaries don't have to be like this big, huge thing, but it could be setting office hours, determining appropriate response times to emails. Are you expected to respond to emails after hours? Clients maybe are texting and calling at all hours. Maybe you want to have like one mode of communication for clients to contact you. All kinds of boundaries can help make a team more successful. And there's no right or wrong here. It's not like that's a good boundary, that's a bad boundary. No right or wrong, but it's just really helpful to get on the same page as your team so you all know what those boundaries are in the first place. So once you know your boundaries, what should you do about it? Well, here's the fun key. You actually have to communicate those boundaries. Setting boundaries are great, but what good are our boundaries if we don't tell anybody what our boundaries actually are? So clearly communicate those boundaries that you've set with your family, your friends, your coworkers, so you're all on the same page. Boundaries are all about you, not about the other person. Nobody cares about your boundaries like you do. So instead of blaming everybody else or ignoring the boundaries that they're ignoring for you, like take control of your boundaries and just kindly communicate and enforce them. Because when you're firm in your boundaries, you can stand your ground. Like it equips you to stand your ground. You can set boundaries all day long, but unless you communicate them, they're not much good. So now the pushback that I get from people around boundaries is that they feel guilty about having them. They feel mean. But the most successful people in the world, they have boundaries. They're good at kindly saying no so that they can focus on their key priorities and what really matters to them, to their team, to their company. So here's a few quick tips on sharing boundaries. It's not mean to have boundaries. This is just about being clear and direct. Your delivery around boundaries, it goes a long way. So mind your tone as you're delivering your boundaries. And nobody can read your mind. So say what you mean, don't make people guess, and don't be wishy-washy on your boundaries. Be really clear so people know what they can expect from you and how you wanted to be treated. So remember, the most successful people in the world, they have boundaries and they know when to say no. And when you have boundaries, people are actually going to respect you more. I think Oprah says it best. She said, you have to be able to set boundaries. Otherwise, the rest of the world is telling you who you are and what you should be doing. You can still be a nice person and set boundaries. So that's tip number one, is to have those boundaries. Tip number two is to say no. So when someone asks you to do something, if it is not an energetic yes or something that lights you up, like you have permission to say no without any of the guilt. Because you only have so much time in the day, right? We talk about time management. We only have so much time in the day. So it's helpful to become more comfortable saying no. And the hard truth time is you aren't doing all of the things well if you're spread too thin. So instead of trying to do it all and devoting small little percentages of time to all these different things, pick out the things that you really want to commit to and you really want to go all in on. Because when you're in the moment, and you can work on that one thing with focused intention, you're 100% all in, you can get so much more done. So let's get tactical. Let's talk about how can we actually reduce that guilt that we have around saying no, because it can feel really uncomfortable to say no. So I'm going to throw these in the chat. These are a few of my favorite ways to say no. So the first is no, thank you, right? It's not for me, but have a great time. So this is like, hello, honesty, because the best way that this can work is in social situations, activities, but letting people know, like, you're just not that into something. The other one is, it's not a good fit for me. Also, you might not know how to do that. So if it's over your head, if it's not something that you have the skill set on, like, it's okay. There's no shame. But often we're afraid to say like, I can't, or I don't know how, or I don't want to, but saying like, it's not a good fit for me. That's actually a really nice way to say no. The other one I love is I would love to, but right now I'm focused on spending more time on, and fill in the blank. So this shifts the focus from your lack of involvement to the reason that you're saying no. Like, no one can fault you for this. You've got a really good reason for what you're focused on instead. And finally, I love this one. If I commit to something, I want to be 100% in. And right now, I don't have the time to give this my full attention. This shows how strong your boundaries are. This shows how strong your commitment is. When you go all in, you want to go all in and be committed to that. So a couple of final tips here. If you're still feeling like, oh gosh, I still feel like I might be guilty saying no, change your perspective here. When you shift the focus off of you and onto the reason why you're saying no, you're automatically going to feel less guilty about it, because it's not about you. It's not that personal. It's just not that serious. You have a good reason why you're going to say no. And then, of course, your tone. If possible, I love doing no's in person or making a phone call, because a text and an email can be so impersonal. Let them hear your voice. Let them hear that you're saying no with compassion and grace. Also, thank them for the opportunity. No, thank you. Be respectful. There's no need to be rude, and never burn a bridge, because it might be a no right now. It might not be a no forever. That might be a great opportunity that you want to explore down the road. And then 2 other tips. One is, you don't have to say, I'm sorry. You don't have to say, no, I'm sorry. It's a natural part of interactions that we have to say no to things. I'm sorry indicates that you did something wrong, and you probably didn't. So no need to say, I'm sorry. And then my other tip here is just to handle it ASAP. I think this stuff can fester inside of us, and we stress about it, and we kind of put it off, and it tends to build up. Like, these are the things that keep us up until 3 a.m. Instead, make your decision, know your boundaries, be firm in saying no, and then just deal with it. Get it off your chest as quickly as possible. Respond to that person as quickly as you can. You have to be able to say no in order to take control of your day, to maximize your time, and to stand your ground. And you do not have to feel guilty about that. Okay, so let's recap. Step number 1 is to have boundaries. Then tip number 2 is to say no. And tip number 3 is to delegate. And delegating is a strategic power move. Now, I know some of you are sitting here thinking like, oh, I can't delegate. There's nobody else on my team, or we don't have the budget for this. I get it. And when I talk about delegating today, I'm talking about getting a little bit creative here. Good idea to maybe start at home, because again, we're whole people. We're not the work person and the home person. It's all lumped in together. And it's usually easier to find things to delegate around your house. So thinking about what could you outsource in your personal or home life? Start with basic things like cleaning, grocery shopping, landscaping. Maybe your kids are old enough to start helping with some of the housework. Again, getting a little bit creative here, because there's pretty much a service for everything nowadays. And chances are, if you're doing it or your partner's asking you to do it, like, there's a company that'll do it for you. Now, I also understand if you're like, I don't want to outsource my hard-earned cash. I don't want to spend that on outsourcing. There might be things that you can just stop doing for a little bit of time. It doesn't mean forever, but if you've got a big goal, if you've got something that today you're like, I want to commit to that, I want to stand my ground, I'm sprinting towards something, maybe there's a couple of little house chores and things that you don't have to do for a small period of time in service of that goal that you have. So now let's think about work. When it comes to delegating at work, this is where we have to get a little strategic. It's not weak to delegate, it's strategic. So reframe your thinking. It's not weak, it's strategic. And thinking about delegating means, how can we optimize your time and your talent? So you're doing the things that you are good at, only you can do, and you're strategically delegating the other tasks. So you might not control the staffing budget at work. So again, you might have to think creatively and strategically here, but could you outsource part of the project to a vendor? Could you restructure the team a little bit or the workflow so that people are really working on the things that they're good at? Could you get a college intern maybe for free? Like, what are the ways that we can get creative here? Just Google whatever you're looking to offload off your plate and see if there's a vendor for it, a part-time vendor, somebody that could be a little bit cheaper. But even if you don't have a big team, just strategically restructuring, rethinking roles, making sure the right people are doing the right things based on their skill set, that is effective delegation. Now, don't go to your boss tomorrow and be like, I was in a Girls Who Print event yesterday and the productivity lady told me to delegate everything. Like, that's not what I'm saying you should do. I'm saying think really methodically about this, strategically about this. How could you, with your talent, best serve your company? What needs to be delegated so that you can work in the best possible role that you're in and bring your best talents to the table? So delegating isn't just about like getting work off your plate. This is about figuring out like a company focused solution, a solution that's really going to help the team from a new perspective, because this is about getting the best out of you with the time that you have. And you should be working at your company with the most ROI in mind all the time. And to do that, you've got to get creative about delegating the rest of the stuff so you can delegate. So to stand your ground, let's recap. We've got 3 tips, which are also permissions, to help you do that. Have the boundaries, say no, and delegate. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for having me to close out your day.
Okay, Sarah. I was riveted, of course, by everything that you said. And you know how I feel about this saying no thing, because I still believe that message you're giving is for people who are established in their careers, who don't have the same fears as younger people, and younger, even if they're not a young person, they could be at a company only for 6 months, so not to come off what you're saying, stand your ground, but let's frame it in a way for those people who I strongly believe, and we have this debate. I almost felt like as you were saying it, you were thinking in your head, oh, Deborah's going crazy on the other end of that camera, because I still, I'm a Gen Xer. I don't even understand someone saying no. I understand what you're saying about boundaries, but let's just reframe it a little. Last thing, and we'll let everybody go. For those younger people, or people not as established in their position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love talking about this so much because I think there's this balance here of like, I know I have a boundary. I know I need to say no, but I'm not sure how to do that. And I think that's where the positioning of this is always helpful. So if you're someone who's worried about this right now, a really good reframe of this is maybe it's a no for today, for this afternoon. I can do it for you tomorrow. I can do it for you next week. So no doesn't have to mean no forever. And so when I say no, I'm not being like, no, I'm meaning, can we reposition it to a different time frame, to another person, to another way of thinking about it? And so I would say the same way that we want to be creative when we're delegating, be creative with how you're saying no. Again, it's not no, no, no. It's I've got to be able to adjust and adapt and reposition things so that I am working in service of that larger goal. And if you've got a manager, I think this is actually a great conversation to have with them. So if Deborah's my manager, I can say, Deborah, I've got these things on my plate and we've just added something else. Where does this fit in the priority order? And again, you can be delightful and have this conversation. This is not a negative thing. You're just asking for some assistance and guidance on, with all the things going on, what's most impactful? What should I be spending time on? What should I be working on next? So you're reframing publicly. You're saying yes to the most important things. Inside, you're saying no to something, but publicly say yes to the right things instead.
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's exactly what I was going to come back in case it was skipped over. That is the best advice ever. Working in an advertising agency, you can't say no. You can say, let me check on that and I'll get right back to you. But then you have to have a plan when you come back. And sometimes that, I think the best advice for everybody there is to go to your manager, the person who asked you the question, and said, hey, let's talk about everything else that I'm doing right now and where it fits in, and then how I can work it in. And sometimes what that leads to is someone saying, wait, why are you doing that? Give that to this person. And now all of a sudden that's off your plate because you said yes to it, because you're not allowed to say no to it. But so it is, I think it's the best advice, because you're not, to your most excellent point, you're not saying no. You don't have to have fear about saying no. You're just saying, help me, help you. Help me,
100%.
help
Yeah.
you.
And
help
I
me,
think
help you.
the framing of that is huge, because you're saying, I want to bring my best value to this project. I want to work on the highest impact stuff. I want to bring the best ROI to the company that I can bring with the time I have. What manager doesn't love that? So I think that's amazing.
And also to go in with data. Look, this, you've asked me to do this. Okay, we're going to get it done. However, I just want to let you know about these other deadlines I have that have to be met first, because they're already there. So I can do this for you, but to your point, I can't do it today. I can get to it tomorrow. And that might be enough to have someone say, okay, then I'll just ask someone else to do it. If it's not something that you really can do, if it's just something that's being thrown at you, it might be something you really want to do, because it'll help give you visibility in a different way, or help put you in a different room with different people to be the person who's presenting the idea, or bringing what is needed to that meeting. You don't want to give up that opportunity, but you still have to set your boundaries, look at your plate and say, okay, we did a podcast about golden hours, and doing your best work at the right time for you. And, it's really just a matter of, I truly believe, standing your ground in the fact that you can get it done, but it might not be in the timeline that has been tossed upon you, and to stand your ground, to have the conversation. You don't know how it's going to end up, but the point is that have the strength to stand your ground, to say, this is what's going on. Let's work together on making these priorities so everything can get done when it needs to get done. And by the way, it would be really helpful if someone could help me on these 3 things, then I would have more time to help you. So Sarah, thank you so much for everything. As I mentioned, Sarah and Kim are doing the workshop. I think I still have the link in yes, it's the only thing I've cut and pasted into the chat all day. So it's still in there. And also Sarah and I co-host the Time Management Tips in 20 podcasts on Podcasts from the Printerverse. So if you either go to printmediacenter.com and click on podcasts, you can find it there under Time Management Tips, or just subscribe wherever you listen to. And we have new episodes come out about once a month. I learn something every time we speak. And I just want to thank you again so much for closing out the conference. For everybody who's joined us today, thank you so much for your time, for your intention. I hope you got something out of it. From the chat, it looks like everybody did. please connect with us in our women only LinkedIn group. We have 10,000 global members and growing. If you want to support Girls Who Print, information about that is on the website. Just get in touch with me. It's $1,500 for the entire year. It includes supporting the Girls Who Print conference. And until next time, everybody, empower long and prosper. Congratulations to Kelly Malazzi, the 2023 Girly Award winner, to Brittany, who won the Rising Star Award, and to everybody who joined us and all our speakers. Thank you. Thank you so much. Power long and prosper, everybody.